Columbus Day, national holiday, except for SportsZone. Here, working hard. Ryan, you know what I'm talking about.
Hey, Vince, how's it going? Wait, where is everybody?
Yeah, I don't know.
I came in the lobby. It was just you. What's going on?
I don't know. Everyone's deciding to take the day off. It's kind of annoying.
The holiday? Well, I mean, I know Dan's coming. Dan's, coming from a meeting or something because Dan's important now. What about? Okay, Jake, he's coming too. Vikram will be here.
We'll hear him
class.
coming.
But where's Cody?
Cody.
Kristen, we know Kristen's coming. We know where everybody else is. Where's Cody?
Cody, the unknown entity. I don't know.
Hold on.
He let us down last week. He can't do it 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, you're not going to believe this.
What's that?
Cody's going to Seth Meyers tonight, so he can't come to SportsZone. What
is that?
You got to do something about this.
We're gonna have to discipline this man.
We got to wait. We got to wait on that because this is SportsZone.
Hello and welcome to SportsZone. I'm joined by Ryan. This is Studio 90, Ryan's triumphant return to Studio 90. Unfortunately, it comes in a week where not a lot happened in soccer, but it's okay. We're going to make it work. We're going to talk about the international games that were played. We'll start with the United States, who played their first game in the country of Cuba, I believe, in 60 or 70 years. They played on a field that was not fit for fifth graders to play on. It was terrible. They were mainly going through the motions to avoid injury, but the United States came out victorious. Goals from Julian Green and Chris Wondolowski. A lot of fringe players got the chance to play before they play New Zealand in D.C. tomorrow night, Tuesday. Ryan, is there anything you can really take away from a victory over a Cuban team that really didn't deserve to be on the field with the United States?
No, it looked like they were playing on a playground in the backyard, but I really think there was nothing that they really wanted to do. They were focused mainly on World Cup qualifying as they play New Zealand tomorrow night in D.C. So just trying to not get hurt on Cuban soil was by far their biggest priority, as you said. So I think that, they emerged victorious. They did what they needed to do. They got the win. But I don't know how they sanction international soccer games on that field.
It was, I felt bad. A lot of players, notably Fabian Johnson and DeAndre Yedlin, literally looked like they were going through the motions, really didn't want to exert themselves. But it was good for Julian Green, who's kind of been a journeyman, to say the least, since his World Cup goal in 2014 against Belgium. Hasn't really gotten any minutes at Bayern Munich. Got the goal, reminded us that he's still only 20 years old, so he still could be one of the bright stars of the future. And this was all in preparation before they opened World Cup qualifying against Mexico in November. That's really the end game for the United States soccer team at this moment in time. But in Europe, World Cup qualifying is well underway. England in a pretty easy group, but they have a lot of turmoil. They fired their manager, Sam Allardyce, after one game in charge, after he was recorded making some not so nice comments about the English FA, about going and getting underhanded payments and what have you. So they installed Gareth Southgate as the manager, and he's made a big decision. He dropped Wayne Rooney for their qualifier tomorrow. Ryan, is this big news going forward? The captain no longer in the English team.
Absolutely. I think it's really kind of been Wayne Rooney's team for the last better part of 10 years or so. Wayne Rooney was, although very skeptical over the last month of where he would fall in the English FA. People feeling like, maybe he didn't belong in the team anymore. But I think it's very interesting that Gareth Southgate finally made this call of we're not going to have Rooney, because his production, even at Manchester United, has dropped substantially. So I think it'll be very interesting to see who picks up the torch for the English team.
Yeah, Rooney really is kind of out of ways. We don't really know what his position is anymore, because he's not good enough to be an out-and-out number 9 as the striker. As an attacking midfielder, as the cam number 10 position, he's poor. In a more number 6 CDM role, he's awful. There's really no place for him when you've got young guys like Harry Kane, Dele Alli, Jordan Henderson, those sort of guys, Eric Dyer. There's no place for a guy like Wayne Rooney, who's 31 years old, has poor fitness, and really just kind of has lost his ability to play soccer at a high level. So that'll be interesting to go forward. Gareth Southgate was the manager of the English U21, so hopefully he's able to bring some of those young guys through the system and reinvigorate the English team that hasn't been good for 20 some odd years. a big game in qualifying that happened today. France played the Netherlands. The Netherlands shockingly didn't qualify for the past Euros. And it was a big game because Paul Pogba, the $108 million man, has been under serious scrutiny since his move to Manchester United for lack of performance. Got the goal today. Ryan, do you see this as kind of a jumpstart for Paul Pogba to get back to the level that everyone thinks he should be at?
I think everybody can hope that this is the jumpstart, but I mean, Paul Pogba's really kind of emerged as one of the leaders of the French national team, especially against a pretty solid Netherlands team. So hopefully that Manchester United has that luxury in hoping that this is really the start for Paul Pogba. But you've seen many high-profile players go to Manchester United and not do well. Case in point being probably the biggest as of now would be Angel Di Maria going to Manchester United and being awful for 1 year. So I think it'll be very interesting to see.
Definitely. Interesting to note from that game, Netherlands lost a World Cup qualifier for the first time since 2001. They had been unbeaten for 34 straight games. They kind of are in flux right now because they're transitioning from the old guard of Robin van Persie and Wesley Sneijder, and they've kind of got transitional guys, Ian Robben, but in the younger generation, led by Memphis Depay, has really been underperforming. So the Dutch will be an interesting team to follow as the European World Cup qualifying progresses. But really, those are the big stories. Everyone else kind of did what you would expect. Cristiano Ronaldo scored 4 goals as Portugal won 6-0, Belgium won 6-0. Really, at this early stage in qualifying, everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. But we'll keep an eye on that as qualifiers resume in November. We're back to club soccer next week. That's all the time we have for this edition of Studio 90. Stick around for more SportsZone after this.
This is our fantasy segment, The Galleon in the Gridiron. My name's Jake Elmsley, and I'm joined here, as usual, by Ryan Siegel. And we're going to show you all the tips, tricks, secrets, and skills you need to win in your fantasy league in Week 6 and beyond. So, Ryan, I suppose we'll start as the way we usually do. What was your biggest surprise in fantasy this week?
I gotta say your biggest surprise was Kyle Rudolph. Absolutely getting shut down by the Houston Texans defense. Kyle Rudolph, the number 2 tight end in the ESPN rankings, just behind Jordan Reed, I believe, this year. Really kind of surprising to only see him catch 2 balls for 15 yards. And I would say the other end of the spectrum on the surprising, more of a good surprise, Martellus Bennett, especially with Rob Gronkowski coming back and a healthy Tom Brady. Martellus Bennett catching 3 touchdowns and about 50, 60 yards for a 24-point performance. I would say both of those were my huge surprises for Week 5.
No, definitely, man, especially with Stephon Diggs being out this week. You would have expected Kyle Rudolph to have an uptick in usage, but, I mean, the Minnesota Vikings just find a different way to win every week. It's almost becoming unpredictable, and also agreeing with that, I mean, Martellus Bennett still proving that he could possibly be fantasy relevant this whole year, even with Rob Gronkowski back in there. But anyway, probably one of my big surprises, probably one of my pleasant surprises, was Amari Cooper finally having that big game that all his owners have been looking forward to all year. I mean, it was to be expected with kind of a soft Chargers defense, especially with Jason Verrett, their number 1 corner, being out this week. But still, for Amari Cooper owners, good to see him come in and have a good game this week. But I suppose on the reverse spectrum, a player who definitely underperformed this week and has been underperforming recently has been Jarvis Landry. Last 2 games, not putting up much of anything, playing not harsh defenses ever since then. But anyway, though, going into the future, though, looking at buys this week, really there's not a lot of fantasy relevance in buys. I mean, you have Tampa Bay, but with Doug Martin and Charles Sims both having been out, unless you're streaming one of their whoever else are the other running backs, or I guess you're using Mike Evans or Jameis Winston, or their defense. But I suppose there's really not a whole lot of fantasy relevance there compared to at least to many other teams. And then the only other team on the bye this week is the Minnesota Vikings, who, unless you're a big Kyle Rudolph fan or a big Stephon Diggs fan, once again, they don't really have any 1A, B options, RB1, WR, wide receiver 1 options there on the team. But really the only relevant, probably the most relevant thing about them, though, is their defense, which has been the number 1 scoring defense. So I suppose, Ryan, do you have any recommendations for streaming options this week for defenses?
As we talked before the segment, I would say you got to look into the Tennessee Titans against the Cleveland Browns at home in Tennessee. Tennessee's been playing very consistent football on D. They haven't necessarily been pulling out the wins they've necessarily wanted, but they have been playing very good defense. They shut down DeAndre Hopkins a couple weeks ago, who is widely considered one of the top 5 deep threats in the league. So I think it's very interesting, and I think with most defenses available, I think you got to go Tennessee against Cleveland.
No, I agree against Cleveland. I mean, we saw them in the game against New England. They lost Cody Kessler to injury, and now he's considered day-to-day. Charlie Whitehurst went in, and I mean, he's Charlie Whitehurst, but even he went down near the end of the game and only really returned to do the game-ending kneel down. So there's no real pulse on how he's doing. And really, I mean, outside of them, it's either they take somebody off of the street like a Tim Tebow or God knows, like a Ryan Lindley, or one of them plays, probably still injured, and even that, I mean, it's a Cleveland Browns offense. You know, they might have led the league in rushing per game going into that New England game, but clearly, I mean, they're a safe team to bet against, even with a sort of talent-poor defense.
Unless you got Terrell Pryor or Isaiah Crowell expecting to have huge games, I think Tennessee is definitely your safe bet with a weak Cleveland quarterback.
Exactly, and even if they put Terrell Pryor in there at QB, you're dealing now with a team that's number one receiver is Andrew Hawkins. Like, it's a safe bet. But Ryan, who are your outside of defenses, though? Who are your sleepers? Who are your must pickups this week, if any?
I definitely think if you don't have Martellus Bennett, you got to keep him. I think he definitely proved that he can be an elite tight end. And the Patriots have always run the double tight end set, especially when they had Hernandez and Gronkowski. So I think both tight ends, whether you have Gronk or you have Martellus Bennett, will both get you points. It's just a matter of, one will get you more than the other. But I think Martellus Bennett is definitely your big offensive sleeper. And as I said earlier, the Tennessee defense is probably your other big sleeper.
For me, if you haven't picked up this player yet, and I want to talk about this player, if he's still available in your league, make the first thing you do Tuesday morning, I don't care when you wake up as early as you can, get Jordan Howard. If he's still available. Last week, I remember liking this pick back when they picked him in the 5th round out of Indiana, and I was a Jeremy Langford owner for a while, but I went straight to Jordan Howard, and I'm loving it. He's had 2 very legitimate games. He's averaging over 5-6 yards per carry. I mean, I know he's played against, I know last week he played against the Bears, but even then, still able to put up, not against the Bears, but against the Colts, and still able to put up big numbers, still producing consistently. So he's definitely a player to watch with that offense that's honestly moving pretty well with Brian Hoyer at QB the last couple of weeks, even if the wins haven't been coming. So anyway, from me, from Ryan, that's all we have for time here in the Galleon in the Gridiron, and there'll be more Sports Zone coming at you next.
Hello, welcome back to Sports Zone. This is our NFL segment Going for Two. I'm joined alongside with Jake Elmsley. As always, Jake, a lot of interesting matchups. I know the biggest one that you had your eyes on was the return of number 12, Tom Brady, against Cleveland Browns. Really kind of an easy way back in after a 4-game suspension. Jake, take us through that game.
Well, let me tell you about that game. Tom Brady, his first drive, took the ball right down the field, drove it down, got a 50-something yard pass to Rob Gronkowski, got LeGarrette Blount punching it in. Next drive, the defense led up a pretty iffy drive to the Cleveland Browns offense, which, scared me a little going back to the Buffalo game where the defense didn't play with a lot of passion. But after that, total domination. Brady was throwing it all over the place to Bennett, to Gronk, to Edelman. Chris Hogan had a 113-yard game. James White got in on the action. Blount didn't do really much after that, but what do you expect when you got the greatest QB of all time in on offense, and he was raring and angry to go. The Browns couldn't do a thing. Cody Kessler went down. Clipboard Jesus got absolutely dominated, had no idea what to do. Terrell Pryor couldn't do a thing after that. The Browns lost the ball on a backwards pitch that turned into a safety for God knows what reason, and they could not stop the Patriots offense, and we end up with just a very high score in Tom Brady with a final stat line of 406 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a big FU to Roger Goodell.
Well, you heard it right there. Tom Brady coming back better than ever. No rust after 4 weeks of not even being allowed in the facility. 7 different receivers for New England caught passes from Brady, so it'll be very interesting to see. The playbook was open for business. Now swinging to closer matchups, one big one with intrigue on Thursday night, the Arizona Cardinals, the Carson Palmer-less Arizona Cardinals, beating pretty handedly the San Francisco 49ers with Drew Stanton. Jake, could we have seen this when Carson Palmer went down the last time if Drew Stanton didn't get injured?
Yeah, I still going back to that year where Drew Stanton played a lot of that game. I still think that the Cardinals could have had a far better chance in the playoffs. I think that they could have beaten that Carolina team in the 2014 postseason if they had Drew Stanton. Really, it was Drew Stanton going down and having to put in Ryan Lindley that really put the nail in the coffin for that team. Drew Stanton is probably one of the top 5 backups in the league, and he can be, can definitely beat a team like San Francisco. Last week when he went against the Rams, he had a bad last half of the quarter. He kind of started off a little shaky against the Niners, but Drew Stanton is a high quality backup quarterback, and they can win a few games with him while they wait for
Carson Palmer to come in, especially with the run game they have with David Johnson and with the fairly strong defense that they have there.
David Johnson, 159 yards, 2 touchdowns, a really dominant performance on his end, and the ageless wonder in Larry Fitzgerald showing how reliable he is for the Arizona offense. But I would say swinging to by far the number 1 defense in the league, the Minnesota Vikings shutting down a very high-powered and very talented and young Houston Texans offense, 31-13. The secondary absolutely limiting Will Fuller and limiting DeAndre Hopkins. Jake, can Minnesota keep this up?
Oh, absolutely. They're one of the most complete teams in the league. I mean, they'll eventually get AP back. They've lost both of their tackles to injury, but Andre Smith going down on the right side hasn't really affected them at all. His backup has actually been playing just as well as he has. Matt Khalil going down will hurt them, but Sam Bradford's getting the ball out of his hand very quickly, so that can usually kind of, mitigate O-line woes. But really, I mean, this was to be totally expected. This wasn't surprising at all. Is a bigger story for those Houston Texan fans now who have to really wonder after getting beaten on by the Patriots and the Vikings. A lot of Texans fans are hoping that the Texans are going to take that next step this year into that upper epsilon of the NFL. But so far, they're proven that with Brock Osweiler, they're not there quite yet, and they might need to go back to the drawing board with things.
Yeah, they might need one more piece, but they've been one more piece away for quite some time. Bringing in Osweiler, many fans thought would be that difference, but as of now, it's still showing that it can be questionable. Swinging to other even closer matchups, you have the first loss. Take that, Deepak. The Philadelphia Eagles have finally lost as they deserve to be. They deserve to have one loss, and they will have many more. 24-23 to the Detroit Lions. Jake, was it about time that were the Eagles finally due to lose?
You see, I really want to say that because along this time I've been kind of, a little worrisome going into the Steelers game. I was saying, now we're really going to see if Carson Wentz has it. And then against the Steelers, he had it. So I was thinking, maybe it'll be the Lions that'll beat on him. But this loss really doesn't have much to do with Carson Wentz. I mean, he didn't play perfectly, but he definitely still played at a high level, higher than I ever would have expected him coming into this year to play, coming out of the D1A, whatever that is. I mean, definitely played higher at the level than I would have expected. And really, it wasn't him who lost in this game. You had a very costly Ryan Matthews fumble. And even the game-ending interception that he threw, the ball was thrown on a perfectly thrown ball was intercepted. It was a great play by the D-back. The wide receiver didn't really do much to help him. It's just, I can't blame Carson Wentz for this loss, and that's probably the most interesting story coming out of this game.
And then the other and third remaining undefeated team fell. Denver losing to the high-powered juggernaut of an offense. That is Atlanta. Paxton Lynch, a lot of hope coming in, especially after Trevor Siemian got hurt. And Trevor Siemian was dominant in his first 3 weeks. Jake, what happened with Paxton Lynch?
I mean, all the things people were afraid of going in with Paxton Lynch. I mean, he's not ready to play in the NFL quite yet. He had a good half against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but that's I don't want to say a much softer defense than the Atlanta Falcons, actually. But it's just that, he seemed worried. He seemed a little rushed sometimes. He didn't have everything together, threw some inaccurate passes. We've been spoiled this year with rookie and first-time QBs playing to extraordinary levels, but it's just, this is usually more so what a first-year quarterback or a first-time starter will look like in the NFL. So it's just, they're going to be fine once they put Trevor Siemian back in. Trevor Siemian will hopefully not hopefully, but for Broncos fans, hopefully will keep playing at the level he's been playing. With their defense, they still have a formula to success. And there's nothing to worry about. All the talent's still there for Paxton Lynch. He just needs a little more time to develop.
Absolutely. And as we kind of close our segments all the time, what's your matchup of the week for Week 6?
Oh, for me, big-time matchup for this week is the Dallas Cowboys at the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field. The Dallas Cowboys have been the most effective running team this year, with Ezekiel Elliott having 4 straight 100-plus yard games, 2 straight 130-yard-plus games with the best O-line in the NFL. It'll be interesting to see how they go against the Packers front seven that has led up, I believe, under 150 rushing yards all season. It'll be very interesting to see how that Packers front seven deals with the dominant Dallas offensive line. We'll definitely see. And if the Packers front seven is able to dominate that Dallas O-line, we'll get to see if Dak Prescott is really able to take over a game and win it solely on the strength of his arm.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that can actually turn out. Green Bay, very known to be a very dominant home team. My matchup of the week, by far, Atlanta, going to the 12th man in Seattle. Seattle always, their defense, as of now, not really as much notoriety as they've normally had. They've lost some guys in their front seven, but they always bring it at home. And especially, it'll be very interesting to see how they can contain a very high-powered offense geared by Julio Jones, Tevin Coleman, Devontae Freeman, and Mohamed Sanu. Really it'll be very interesting to see how Matt Ryan can do in the very loud 12th man, which is very hard to hear signals. But anyway, that's all the time we have for this edition of Going for Two. More Sports Zone coming for you after this.
Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. This is going to be our AU Insiders panel. I am Dan, and I am going to wrap you up on everything you missed this past week in American University athletics. It was a busy week this week. There was a lot going on. We games Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we're all over the place. Lots to catch up on. So we'll jump right in. We'll start inside this time. We'll start with AU volleyball. As we mentioned, every time we talk about them, as good as it gets. 3 matches this week, one on Tuesday, and then 2 weekend matches. They won all 3. They actually dropped a set against Navy. That was on Tuesday. They dropped a set. They won that one 3-1, which is surprising because they don't really lose sets all that much. They've now won 8 straight games and dropped just the 1 set in those 8 straight matches, and dropped just the 1 set. Which is positive. They're still undefeated in conference play. Sweeps over the weekend of Lehigh and Colgate, who were number 2 and 3 in conference play coming in, meaning AU retains their number 1 spot in the conference, remaining the only undefeated team in the conference. None of this is surprising. I feel like a broken record, but business as usual, I suppose, for AU volleyball. We'll head outside now to another team that's been impressing this season, AU field hockey, now a top 20 team in the nation, came into this past weekend at number 20 and defeated Michigan State over the weekend by a score of 3-2, which has got to be a good win for them. Michigan State, obviously an actual major conference team who's been nationally ranked in the past. That's a big win for them. Of course, not a conference match, but every win counts, especially when you're looking towards the tournament potentially. So a win against Michigan State, a good Michigan State team, is definitely positive. As I said, that's 3-2. Also, general congratulations and awards on volleyball. On the field hockey side. I believe it was last week's honors were keeper Maura Jacobs and Rafaela Rubas as the offensive player of the week and goalkeeper of the week. Not the first time Jacobs has won keeper of the week. And there's a couple of good awards coming in for the AU field hockey team over the course of this season. So Patriot League awards, which is always nice to see them get the recognition that they frankly deserve because they're, as I said, a very good team. Shifting from field hockey, we'll go to soccer. We'll start women's soccer because we'll start female and then do the men after. They worked out another draw, their second in conference play over the weekend. That was, I believe, at home against Army. His final score was 1-1. The only goal they conceded actually on a penalty kick, which is really, really unfortunate, just because they had a lead for most of the game. Fairly deep into the second half with about 15 minutes to go, conceded a penalty, which is just tough luck on a keeper. There's not really much you can do about it. It's a lot of game of luck at that point, whether or not you can guess the right direction and get a hand on it. But a tie is good. You get points in the standings, which is always a positive. So points on the board, which is always good. Now we'll shift to the men. They were on the road this weekend, although they did play a game at home earlier in the week. That was on Tuesday. They played Loyola. They lost that one actually 1-0, their first conference loss of the season, but made up for it heading on the road to Lafayette, a commanding 3-0 victory for the AU men's soccer team. So back into the win column. I believe now 3-1 in conference play, which is a strong showing to be sure. We'll see if they can make some noise as we approach tournament time. As I said, they lost to Loyola, who, according to team manager Nick Papadis and a good friend of mine, could be looking to host the tournament this year. They've made some big steps this season, a much improved team, a very solid freshman class for them. So we'll see what kind of happens there, if they can be a team to beat. So we'll watch as we get closer, as I said, to tournament time. I believe AU currently sitting around 2 or 3 in the conference. As I said, just that one loss, the 3 wins, which is always good. You get those 9 points in there. You much take a win to a draw. So certainly up near the top of the conference nonetheless. So again, something else to watch as the season progresses. We are now into almost mid-October. So these seasons are going to start winding down as we approach the end of the month and November, as we'll start heading towards tournament time. So not much time left. Still enough to make some moves if you need to, but 3 out of the 4 fall teams in a decent spot as of right now. I don't want to jinx anything, but looking pretty solid overall this fall season, AU Athletics. That is all the fall sports. That is all the time we have for this AU Insiders panel. Stay tuned. We have more Sports Zone coming up after this.
Hello, welcome back to SportsZone. This is Ice Time. I'm Ryan Siegel. We're here to talk about the beginning of the National Hockey League season on Wednesday night, October 12th. It's back. Best sport on the planet is back. We're ready to go. It's NHL time. So, big matchups coming up on NBC Sportsnet. We have an immediate Wednesday night rivalry, starting with by far one of the more prolific playoff series in the last 3 years. The St. Louis Blues coming to the Madhouse on Madison, taking on the Chicago Blackhawks. Very, very heated rivalry, very, very anticipated matchup. Should be a lot of interesting perspectives on it. St. Louis knocking out Chicago out of the playoffs last year. It'll be very interesting to see how Chicago responds this year, especially now that we have a, kind of upset Patrick Kane after their World Cup performance. So he'll be ready to go, firing on all cylinders. And then the nightcap on Wednesday, you have the Los Angeles Kings and the San Jose Sharks in the Shark Tank in San Jose. It'll be very interesting to see how that turns out. Another playoff series where hopefully the Kings can avenge their loss against San Jose. Moving on to Thursday, my team, the lovely New York Rangers, with their very now shaky Henrik Lundqvist in net, will be taking on their crosstown rivals, the New York Islanders, at Madison Square Garden on Thursday night. Should be very interesting to see how Henrik Lundqvist can respond after what many people consider a very weak World Cup of hockey for him. Be very interesting to see new young players like Mika Zibanejad and Nathan Gerbe get serious playing time, as well as Brady Shea and Dylan McElrath both having to step up into key defensive roles in their top 6. Swinging to Friday, you have the Chicago Blackhawks back on the lovely NBC Sportsnet against the Nashville Predators. It'll be the first game Nashville has played in a very long time without Shea Weber, but they will have the emergence of PK Subban. Subban and Shea Weber, by far the most monumental trade this offseason, trading captain for top defenseman after rumors of definite pushback between Subban and head coach Michel Therrien. No, I missed one game on Thursday. You have the defending Stanley Cup champions on NBC Sportsnet taking on their rivals, the Washington Capitals. We are going to get a Crosby v. Ovechkin battle. However, we were expected one. However, Crosby just today was diagnosed with a concussion as per their general manager, Jim Morrison, and Crosby will be out. He sustained a concussion on Friday in practice, according to head coach Mike Sullivan. So the Crosby v. Ovechkin matchup that we were expected to see in game one, will not take place. It'll be very interesting to see how Ovechkin can respond and kind of let's see if he really shows to once again be a dominant regular season player. It'll be very interesting to see can the Capitals avenge their loss last year, especially with losing guys like Jason Chimera and Michael Lotta. It'll be very interesting to see how that actually turns out. Looking forward, looking towards playoff projections, we kind of mentioned it with Nathan last week. We have my Stanley Cup final projection, even though we have not even played a game yet. I am just that excited because playoff hockey, hashtag because it's the Cup. I've got the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the St. Louis Blues. I've said it for 3 years now. I really think St. Louis, this is their year that they make the Cup final. They're probably going to let me down again, but I really think that this year they've got all the pieces that they need to make a serious Cup run. And Tampa Bay signing a healthy Jonathan Drouin and re-signing Steven Stamkos was monumental for them. I think they'll both find their ways back in the Stanley Cup Finals. And I think that could go either way with 6 or 7 games. But anyway, that's all the time we have for this edition of Ice Time. Stick around for more news regarding ice hockey and the NHL for weeks beyond. I'm Ryan Siegel. More SportsZone coming to you after this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to SportsZone. I'm Dan. I've got Kristen here with me, and this is Getting to Third Base. Playoff baseball in full swing, and we missed baseball last week, mainly because of technical difficulties. We actually recorded a segment, and it was quite long and great, but you never saw it, which is sad. But anyway, so we've got a lot to cover since we didn't technically hit it last week. Anyway, just catching things up to date. One division series is already in the books. The Toronto Blue Jays, red hot right now, after beating the Orioles in the wild card game on a walk-off home run, which we'll get to in a little bit, have swept the Texas Rangers 3-0 in the division series. The Rangers, who were the best team in the American League, coming into the playoffs, and handled easily by the Rangers. Some dramatics at the end of a couple games. But Toronto, moving on, now can rest up as they await their opponent. Kristen, what did you see from Toronto this postseason so far?
I think Toronto is just having an explosive postseason, as you mentioned. I think it's disappointing for the Rangers 2 years in a row getting knocked out by them and like having them be the best team, and then coming into that and really, as you said, getting handled by the Blue Jays and their strong lineup. So it's disappointing for the Rangers, and the Blue Jays are really looking strong going forward.
Yeah, you talked about that lineup. That's what it is with the Blue Jays. It's been a lot of Edwin Encarnacion, the Ed Wing, as he rounds the bases with a parrot on his arm when he hits a home run. But it's been a lot of Encarnacion. He hit the walk-off home run to beat the Orioles. A lot of discussion, arguably scandal, about that game because it was tie game in extra innings. Toronto was home, Baltimore on the road, and a lot of people were getting on Buck Showalter, the manager of the Orioles, for not using his closer in a tie game on the road. It's kind of one of those unwritten rules in baseball. Closer usage is very interesting. I'm curious what your thoughts on that were.
I think it's a tight spot. I think that he deserves a little bit of criticism, but I also understand the other hand of it. So I think that both sides are justified in what they have to say about that. But as I said, it's a really tricky spot for a manager to be in, so it could have gone either way for that.
Absolutely, and a lot of the criticism obviously comes from the result, right? So you went with Ubaldo Jimenez, who's a starter in the 10th inning, expecting the game to drag on, and he allowed the home run to Encarnacion, so that's when everyone goes like, oh, he obviously was a bad choice because he allowed the home run. But sure, and yeah, Zach Britton is one of the best closers in baseball, but from my perspective, if you use Britton in a tie game in the 11th, and sure, maybe he gets through a clean inning, but then what do you do? Because as a road team, if they score in the top of the 12th, who gets the save chance, right? That's why you save your closer when you're the road team. A home team is different. A home team, you always use your closer in the 9th because there's not going to be a save opportunity after that. So for me, I don't think the criticism of Buck Showalter is fair. That's my personal opinion. You're entitled to your own, but that's just me. Anyway, back to Toronto from that little sidebar. And it said Encarnacion really kind of carrying the team. I think he's got 2 or 3 home runs in the 4 games the Blue Jays have played so far. And it's a high-powered offense for them for sure. They won another one in extra innings, the clincher against Texas, on a very weird kind of play, a double play that wasn't turned. But anyway, good for Toronto. Shifting now to the other American League series. 2-0 in favor of the Cleveland Indians. Game 3 in Boston will be tonight. Was supposed to be yesterday, but was rained out, so they'll play tonight instead. Boston looking to save their season, keep their season alive, but they are home now. What do you see happening in this one? Can Boston win 3 straight and fight back, or is Cleveland going to take it?
I don't know if Boston's going to be able to pull out 3 straight wins, but I think they do have the edge in the pitching matchup tonight, and since they are home, it gives them a little bit of an extra advantage. So I think they have a good shot to keep themselves alive tonight, but I don't know if they'll be able to go the distance and win the series.
Now, as we talked about in the past, it's Big Papi's last year. I'm sure he'd like it to continue on a little bit longer. But as we said, they're in the hole 2-0 right now. They've got the talent to make it work. They just have to put it together. And pitching's been a question for them all season. David Price has another playoff dud. His entire career, he's been very bad in the playoffs. Is this what his legacy is going to be as a great regular season pitcher, but someone who can't get it done in a big game?
I think looking back, the only thing that people really remember is how you come through in big spots. So I think it's unfortunate, but I think that he's going to leave behind a legacy of just faltering in big games and on big stages, because that's the most important thing, and that's what everyone remembers looking back. So it's unfortunate, but I think that's what's going to be the case for him.
So he's also, interesting little factoid, he's he's the only player to appear in the postseason 4 consecutive years with 4 different teams. With the Rays, then the Tigers, then the Blue Jays last year, and now the Red Sox. Anyway, so we'll transition there from poor playoff pitching in David Price to one of the best playoff pitchers, arguably of all time, certainly of this era, Madison Bumgarner. He gets the ball in Game 3 against the Cubs, the Giants-Cubs. That'll be, I think, tomorrow. That'll be Game 3. Cubs up 2-0 there, but heading to San Francisco for 2 games. It'll be Bumgarner, Arrieta. Arrieta was so-so in the playoffs last year, but Bumgarner, known for his playoff heroics, complete game shutout in the wild card game, and then 2 years ago he pitched 5 innings to get a save in the World Series clincher. Just like a couple days after he threw 7 shutout innings, he's known for this. Does he have enough of an edge on Arrieta to get San Francisco back into the series?
So coming off of a really strong performance, obviously, in the wildcard game for Bumgarner, I think he has a great shot up against Arrieta, but I still give Arrieta the edge over him just because of his what we've seen from him recently. I think he's just has a slight edge over Bumgarner in that game, but it's obviously going to be another close matchup, and it's really exciting to see what's going to happen there.
Well, that Cubs offense is so good, and their pitching has also been so good. They seem like a really, really complete team. And if you give them a lead late in the game, Aroldis Chapman waiting there at the back end of that bullpen as well to close it out with 104-mile-an-hour fastballs. It'll be very interesting to see, can Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo and these guys get to Bumgarner? He's not an easy guy to face, especially from the left side. You got someone like Rizzo who hits left-handed. It's going to be tough. Moving on to the last National League Series, the only one to be tied at this point, 1-1 Nationals-Dodgers. The Dodgers took Game 2, the Nationals took Game 2, the Dodgers took Game 1 behind Clayton Kershaw, though not a great outing from him either, another pitcher who struggles in the playoffs. So 1-1, they're heading to Los Angeles now. What do you think happens in the rest of this one?
I think heading to Los Angeles is going to be a really hard task for the Nationals to handle, although Daniel Murphy has been continuously hot and he's just hitting the ball so well. But I think the Dodgers at home are just they're a very scrappy playoff team, and I think they're going to find a way to pull this series out, although it's a very even match. Yeah,
definitely evenly matched. Bryce Harper not doing much. Another slow playoff start for him, but as you said, Daniel Murphy went 3 for 3 at 2 RBIs in Game 2. And they got heroics from an unlikely source, Jose Lobaton, the backup catcher with Wilson Ramos out for the year with a knee injury. Launched a 3-run home run off Rich Hill to give him the lead, and they never looked back from there. So that's what we have in terms of, as I said, playoff matchups. We'll recap the division series, which will certainly be over by the time we record again, and we'll go over the championship series when we know what they are. For now, that is all the time we have for getting to third base. We got more SportsZone after this. Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. I'm Dan. I've got Binns here with me, and we're going to take another stab at this college football segment, which technically doesn't have a name. So it's just going to be the college football segment. The college football segment, I should say. Anyway, no huge shakeups in the top 5 this week, but a couple of things going on in the top 10. So as I said, the top 5 stays as it is. Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Michigan at number 4, and then Washington, the Huskies, at number 5. Number 6 team last week, Houston. Big loss this week. They lost to Navy, previously unranked Navy, now into the top 25 are the Mids, Patriot League and everything except football. But Houston dropping out, a tough loss for them, and a big win for Navy.
Yeah, this was definitely crippling for Houston, who won their big game to open the season against Oklahoma, and then theoretically, if they won out on their schedule, it's the American Athletic Conference, not very strong. They potentially could have had that Boise State effect to get an outside chance of getting in to the top 4 and making the college football playoff, but that needed to happen by winning their games. They didn't. I believe they were getting their quarterback, Greg Ward, back in this game, so they had a lot of things going for them, but Navy, I think they're still running the triple option, which is notoriously tricky, and teams really have trouble dealing with it. And Navy's been a good team for a while, 7-8 win team, so I think it's not surprising. It's unfortunate for Houston. There's going to be no Cinderella this year in college football, but there's a lot of parity.
So yeah, as you said, Navy is a good team. Go Mids. I've got a good friend who goes to the Naval Academy, or is a midshipman. And I believe they're on a new quarterback this year, though. The quarterback did graduate last year. I believe he was drafted by the Ravens, so he's staying close to home, if nothing else. But we'll look ahead now to next week a little bit. Just keep things in the top 10, though. Some big matchups, 1 versus 9. It's Alabama against Tennessee. That's a huge conference match. Tennessee did lose, but remains in the top 10. If they can make some noise against Alabama, that immediately puts them right back into the picture.
Definitely. And they're in the SEC East, which is significantly weaker than the SEC West. Because in the West, you've got Alabama, you've got LSU's not very good this year, but you've got Ole Miss, Texas A&M, all those teams. Whereas in the East, you've got Tennessee and Florida all the way down at 18. So Tennessee still in the thick of things. If they can remain afloat and win a lot of the remaining games, they could potentially be there in the SEC championship game at the end of the year. We called them cardiac balls last week. They fell in double overtime to Texas A&M this past weekend, so maybe their luck ran out, and Alabama is always a strong package. I don't see the Vols scoring the winner, really putting up a fight against Alabama, but they can still remain solvent in that SEC East that's a little bit weaker than the West.
And you talked about Texas A&M. They're now up to number 6, I believe, in the country, taking that spot that Houston vacated. So you talked about the strength of the SEC. Those 3 teams as in the top 10 is a clear demonstration of that. Moving down just one peg, Ohio State at number 2. They'll face number 8, Wisconsin, next week, in another big top 10 matchup and another conference matchup as well. Ohio State not super dominant against Indiana. The defense played well. The offense was okay. Is it a sign of weakness or just a bump in the road for Ohio State?
I think to be determined this weekend, because Wisconsin's got a strong defense. JT Barrett still put up big numbers, and I think he's still the leading candidate for the Heisman. But Wisconsin's an extremely strong defense. They held Michigan, although in a losing effort, to only 14 points. And this is a Michigan team that's averaging 60 points a game. And they also held Leonard Fournette in the opening week of the season to, I believe, under 70 yards. So the Wisconsin defense is extremely strong. It's going to be a big test for JT Barrett and the boys to kind of see where they are, to see if it was just a blip against Indiana or if it's a trend of things to come.
So yeah, we talked. That's Ohio State. You mentioned Michigan and their offense. It would be a mistake to not mention the hurting that they put on Rutgers this weekend by a final score of 78-0 at Rutgers up in Jersey. And then to follow up on that, which is one of the great stories of the week, an Ann Arbor-based Ruth's Chris Steakhouse was offering a discount, 1% off your bill for point differential of the game against Rutgers. Except when Michigan won by 78, they had to cap their discount at 50%. Because I don't think anyone expected it to be that bad of a stomping by Michigan. But the Fighting Khakis looking very strong. Admittedly, Rutgers not necessarily a top quality opponent, but to put up almost 80 points is something.
Yeah, they are clicking on all cylinders out there. Wilton Spate managing the quarterback position, and Jabril Peppers, their cornerback / running back. I believe he had a couple rushing touchdowns this week. He's leading the nation in punt return yards. As a cornerback, I believe he's also leading the nation in tackles for loss. He's kind of that dark horse defensive candidate for the Heisman, but they are playing phenomenally well. They had an offensive down week, but still beat Wisconsin when they won 14-7, and they're just a juggernaut. I will note that the Ruth's Chris of Ann Arbor, that's poor research on them. Rutgers gave up 51 points to Ohio State, I believe, the week before, so thinking that they would, get anything less than a complete disaster, that's the advertising, we're not in thumbs down yet, but that's a thumbs down to their advertising department. It's poor researching all around.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a fair point. We'll make a couple points, a couple of big additions to the top 25. I mentioned Navy earlier. Western Kentucky into the top 25. That's a school you don't hear often cracking the coaches poll. They pulled off an upset win this week.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably sit on the fringes there in the high 20s, low 18 or low teens. But I mean, the conference that they're in, they're not going to get a lot of strong quality opponents, so even if they do win out, it'll be tough to see them break the top 15, but definitely good for their program. As you said, not a program that you hear a lot, at least when it comes to college football. College basketball, they've had a couple upsets recently, but college football, not as strong.
A couple other things just kind of go around. Big Red River rivalry game this week. And the highest scoring Red River rivalry game ever. That one's 45-40. Texas lost. Yes, Texas lost in that one. So that was just a little extra note. Rivalry games are always fun. I had another one, but I lost it, and we're out of time anyway, so it's okay. That will do it for the college football segment. I'm Dan, this is Vince. We got more SportsZone coming at you next.
Hello, welcome back to SportsZone. This is by far the most revolutionary segment we have on the show. It came from our humble producer, Dan Lignato, who's a huge Seinfeld fan.
Wrong.
You know, he was a very big fan of celebrating the holiday Festivus. Festivus is for the rest of us. But as Festivus tradition, we have the airing of the grievances, and on SportsZone, we decided to take that to heart. So, Jake, get the ball rolling, bud.
You see, to start off, we'll start at the best place to start, the home. I have an in-house grievance for us today, a SportsZone grievance to start the month. I have a big grievance towards our good friend Dan, who, when I was making a passionate recap of the New England Patriots and the Cleveland Browns game, a recap that would sure to catapult this show to the next stratosphere of college internet-based sports television. He came in here and, of course, hating that I'm allowed to be happy, shut me down, even after it was a recap that injected even more energy than usual into our wonderful NFL segment. A recap that I had to repeat with not quite the same amount of energy, but I do believe an admirable effort, but it was still just a shadow of the raw glee that I felt when going into it.
Hey, I hear you. I gotta say, my biggest thing was just now on the college football segment.
Going for two
Nobody
U.
says the Ohio State University that people go to Ohio State, other than the football players who barely learned how to read at the Ohio State University. The fact that we had to mention the Ann Arbor Ruth's Chris, you might as well have just put Deepak out here scrolling on his phone because it was just. Really? We get it. It was poor researching. I know I'm probably, Vince, I'm with you on it, though. Thumbs down to their researching department because that is piss poor. I know you're back there agreeing with me.
Also,
that was piss poor.
Also, while there's still a little bit of kindling left in the pile that used to be Dan, why the mids? Who calls the Navy midshipmen the mids?
Yeah, that's another very interesting point.
Also, keeping on this Navy ship, the AU Black Lives Matter movement deciding to stage a protest during the national anthem at a women's volleyball game.
Against Navy.
Against the Navy versus the Navy. That our military athletic director, for some odd reason, didn't take very kindly to.
Yeah, well,
so
they weren't very smart with picking
that was that. I don't blame
them.
them. I don't know the women's volleyball schedule either, but
that was bad.
That was bad. Also, a big airing to the Johns Hopkins University rugby captain while sustaining a shutout beating, 3/4 of the way through the game, requested that we stop. We didn't stop. They didn't score. They just had to sit there in the rain and take it. Do you have any more grievances, Ryan?
Oh, I've got a couple more. Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Ryan Fitzpatrick. Let's talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick.
What? What are you doing?
He is being Ryan Fitzpatrick, man. What did you expect?
How many picks has he thrown in the last 3 weeks?
It's definitely in the double digits.
Okay, he didn't throw any this week, but he's thrown 8 in 2 weeks.
8 in
10 in 2 weeks. You're not helping your case, Dan.
You know who hasn't thrown any picks in 3 weeks? Tom Brady.
Tom Brady played 1 week against a high school football team.
Yeah, he did he?
The Cleveland Browns could lose to the AU football team.
Oh, I'm sure that they could.
Oh, my goodness gracious. See, and the thing, Terrell Pryor was one of the best players in college football.
Oh, okay, let's not go too far.
During his era. And now he's playing for the Cleveland Browns. I'm convinced. You want to go 3 or 4 in the draft because apparently going number 1 to Cleveland is like suicide for every guy who's went. I don't get it. You said it. You had clipboard Jesus as your quarterback.
You just got to bomb that draft interview at the Combine. You just need to go in and just, when you are going to go meet with Hugh Jackson, just show up late, look confused, drool over his plays that he's trying to show you, Tell him that you have a drug arrest. I don't know. Whatever it is, though, don't let him bomb you. Then go into that meeting with the Miami Dolphins wide-eyed, as smart as you've ever felt in your entire life. Because let me tell you what, you do not want to go to that Cleveland Browns organization. Shout out to Cody Kessler trying to right the ship. Got hurt. Shout out to Josh McCown. No shout out to RG3. Don't like you, but what can you do?
When will the Jets' schedule get easy? When
Never.
do we play Cleveland? I know
Never.
we played Cleveland.
Oh, big grievance airing, by the way, to people who try to say that the Patriots have an easy schedule.
They do have an easy
They're playing the NFC North and they're playing the AFC North and the NFC West.
The AFC North isn't that good.
Cincinnati,
Cincinnati's like mediocre.
Steelers,
Pittsburgh's mediocre. They lost to the Eagles by 31.
Ravens,
The Ravens are a fucking joke.
Seahawks,
Seattle, they've been an embattled Seattle
Cardinals.
Seahawks. Arizona's put up.
Rams,
Dude, the LA Rams, are you kidding me?
49ers.
49ers are awful. They
It's a
lost,
really tough
they
schedule.
lost to Drew
Gotta say, this is a
Stanton.
really tough schedule about 2 years ago.
They lost to Drew
Lost to
Stanton.
Drew Stanton, who's in the NFC West. Or did the Cardinals win with Drew Stanton, who the Patriots beat with Jimmy Garoppolo?
I have no idea what you're saying anymore.
Patriots,
What-
Super Bowl 51.
Vince, what time is it?
How long have we been doing this for?
Does anybody know what time
Is
we
this even
have?
funny anymore?
I'm just getting
Yeah,
annoyed now.
we're just talking. Yeah, we're talking about football now.
Dan, you told us to air grievances
Yeah,
for
we're out
as
of
long
grievance.
as we want,
Yeah,
and
we're just-
we're airing our grievances. That's what we're here for. Okay, hold on. I've got the real question.
Oh, here we go. It's a grievance.
Hold on one sec, Jake. I need the middle of this.
You're on my
Dan,
mic.
you're going to be with this too. Where is Cody Cohen? Where is he? I don't get it.
Last I saw, Cody Cohen has been scouring through the deserts.
Of Seth Meyers?
Maybe it was Seth Meyers. I don't know. Seth
Yeah.
Meyers in New York. is
Cody's
based-
like, yep, I'm not going to go to SportsZone today because I'm going to go hang out with my pal Seth Meyers.
Ooh, what does
instead.
Seth Meyers have? What opportunities does he have to offer that we don't have to offer? We try to get him his reality show, and if we can't do it, with all of our powers here, I have swipe access to this building. I can't get into the studio, but I can get through that big glass door out there. Right? I can show up here and not have to knock. All of us can do that. And if we can't get Cody Cohen a reality show on AUA TV, what can Seth Meyers do for him? Cody Cohen is a talent of a generation. He's the voice for millennials everywhere. He needs to be heard. But the only way for him to be heard is to be here in his home, not with Seth Meyers, of all people.
Oh well. Where,
If you're gonna
where
ditch us,
was
at least-
everybody this week?
At least ditch us for I don't know.
Alrighty. Well, anyway, that's all the time we have for
That's
this
all the
edition of
errands
airing the grievances.
It is a breezy day in Sadville.
More Sports Zone coming to you after this. Hello, welcome back to Sports Zone. This is our favorite segment, Thumble, Thumbs Up, Thumbs Down, where we talk about the good, the bad, and sometimes ugly in the world of sports and the world at large. We're going to start, I guess, kind of on the home front. Thumbs down to Cody Cohen for thinking, Seth Meyers is cooler than all of us. He's not. It's awful. What do you think this is? This is a real show. I'm just upset with you, Cody. This is 2 weeks in a row now. Get it together. But in honor of Cody, thumbs up because, I got through a midterm today. Yeah. Thumbs up to the weather because why not? It's sweater weather outside. Thumbs down to still midterms week. Come on. I don't know a single person who likes midterms, but I'm assuming Cody does because Cody's not cool enough to be here, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know who this Seth Meyers is. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Thumbs down to the New York Mets for falling to the even-yeared dominant Giants. Somehow they, Syndergaard was pitching a gem. Jerry's Familia, just not helping when it counted. And Madison Bumgarner in the postseason is just unhittable. Thumbs up to Deflategate finally being over, but not thumbs up or thumbs down to Tom Brady coming back because I just simply can't stand him. But thumbs up to Deflategate being over. Thumbs down to the Ann Arbor in Ruth's Chris Ann Arbor. Sorry for the pronunciation. On their, bold prediction that Michigan wouldn't score that many points against Rutgers. Rutgers hasn't been good since Ray Rice played football there in 2007. as a guy from New Jersey, I just feel like embarrassed on your part. And as Vince said, the marketing department and the research, awful, absolutely just abysmal. Really just abysmal. Thumbs up to the fact that hockey starts this week. Thank the Lord. I was getting a little bored. Just because watching the New York Jets right now is just simply unbearable. Dan would know just as much as I would. Hey, we suffer together, Dan. We suffer together. Thumbs up to the Chicago Cubs because maybe, just maybe, they might. I can't say it. Thumbs up to the Eagles finally losing, but hey, they're still gonna go 15-1, Super Bowl bound. Not happening. Thumbs down to Vikram for showing up halfway through Studio 90, 2 minutes earlier, and I would have not had to talk about soccer. Thumbs down to Dan for calling the midshipmen the mids. Nobody really knew that back in the back. We were assuming. And thumbs down, Dr. Billy Walker, just losing it, and Barry Goldberg just losing it on Wednesday over the national anthem fiasco and over, Barry's 3-0 win. I don't know. Barry's team swept the top 3 teams in the conference now, and, talking about poor hitting performances. But anyway, yeah, that's all my thumbs. So, Jake, take it away.
All right, well, thumbs up to the triumphant return of the airing of the grievances, the most passionate segment here on SportsZone. Thumbs up to the American University Men's Rugby Football Club for absolutely dominating Johns Hopkins University 74-0 on a beautiful rainy day in Maryland. Thumbs up to Kristen and Dan for making it in today. Thumbs down to Dan not crying during getting the third. I almost put money on it, but thumbs up to me for not doing that. Thumbs down again to calling the Navy midshipmen the mids. It's just sitting with me, man. It's just sitting with me. And I am forgetting something. Oh, boy, I am forgetting something. Oh! Thumbs up to the return of Tom Brady. Man, don't I just love me some Tom Brady. Don't I just love me some Tom Brady, man. 406 yards, 3 touchdowns, beating the Browns, gonna beat Cincinnati next week, gonna beat all the teams after that, gonna go to the Super Bowl, gonna win the Super Bowl. Everybody's gonna be mad. I'm not gonna be mad, though. I'm gonna be happy because Brady's back. Oh, also, thumbs up to the eventual misery porn that will be the Cubs losing in the World Series. You heard it here. It's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know how it would happen, but it's going to happen. It'll be hilarious. It'll be great. I want to make the Brady thing my last thumb, but I guess I'm just on another roll now. Thumbs down to steakhouses with ridiculous sports-based promotions not being located near me. I could go for a 74% off steak right now, but sadly, I won't get one. And that's all I got. So I'm not leaving because Ryan's telling me to. I'm leaving on my own accord, but here's Kristen.
All right, thumbs up to Noah Syndergaard for an absolutely stellar performance in the wildcard game. Just when I thought I couldn't be any more in awe of his pitching, he goes out there and pitches that gem. I think he 100% outpitched Bumgarner. Unfortunately, the results don't reflect that. Thumbs up to Curtis Granderson for really the last month of baseball, the run that he went on. A lot of people don't appreciate the value that he brings to that team, and he was just awesome late down the stretch. Thumbs down to Cody for not being here. Once again, I miss you. And thumbs up to Cody for showing a couple of my friends from home the studio this weekend. They thought it was really cool to see everything, and that's all I have.
Hello, so thumbs up to soccer all over the world. Thumbs down to the weather because it's getting really chilly. Thumbs up to Cristiano Ronaldo to score 4 goals in a game. thumbs down to me because I showed up late today. Thumbs down to midterms. I have one tomorrow and I hate it. Thumbs up to football all over the world. Thumbs down to injuries. Sergio Ramos out for 4 weeks. Milic out for 6 months. Not a good sign. And that's all I have for you now.
All right, so we're just gonna slide in here, and we'll start with a thumbs down for the unfortunate timing of the Studio 90 segment. We missed out on Vikram. I feel like that was unfortunate, so we'll thumbs that down. We'll go thumbs up to Sammy Coates. Caught his first 2 career touchdown passes for the Steelers against the Jets. He probably had one of the weirdest performances of all time, because he caught the touchdown pass, then was proceeded to be horrible in the second and third quarters, dropping 4 passes, then caught another touchdown pass. So I don't really know if he had a good game or a bad game, but he caught 2 touchdowns, so good for you, Sammy Coates. Good for you. Thumbs down to the Steelers' injury situation. Everyone's deciding that it's really cool to just be hurt. It's not cool when you can barely field a 45-man active roster because everyone's hurt. It's not a good way for long-term success. We're going to go thumbs down to the international break. It makes it a boring time for soccer, but we'll go thumbs up because the international break brought one of the most bizarre stories I think I've ever heard between Enner Valencia and the Ecuadorian police. Enner Valencia owed $14,000 in child protective services fees for his ex-wife's child, and the police had a warrant for his arrest. So they surrounded the pitch while Enner Valencia was playing in a qualifier against Bolivia. Enner Valencia smartly decides to fake an injury, so he goes off the pitch, gets on a golf cart. They speed out of the arena with like 7 police officers chasing him, and he evades the police all the way to the hospital. That's the most ridiculous story I've ever heard in my entire life. I don't have anything else that can top that. Here's Dan.
Ooh. Well, that's tough to top. I don't really know how I'm going to do that. All right, sports. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay. I will give a thumbs up. It's a very sarcastic thumbs up, but it's thumbs up. Ryan Fitzpatrick didn't throw an interception this week. Progress. They still look terrible, but no turnovers. There we go. It's something. I'll jump in on thumbs down for injuries, just for across the board. Nobody wants to see anyone get hurt. Whether it's Sidney Crosby or Eric Decker or any of those soccer people that I don't know that Vikram named. You never want to see anyone get hurt. You want to see as many people on the field, as talented people on the field as you can. I will give a thumbs down to myself, kind of. Last week, I gave a preemptive thumbs down to Terry Collins about starting Eric Campbell at first base against Madison Bumgarner. Now, technically, he didn't start Campbell, but he did pinch hit with him, so that's why it's only half a thumbs down, because I was still right. Eric Campbell did get in the game. And another thumbs down to Terry Collins because Lucas Duda wasn't even on the roster, which I consider to be unacceptable, especially in a game that was as well pitched as it was. You need a player like that who can hit a home run. But that's not the point. It's for another time. That rant is for another time. I will give a thumbs down to the Long Island Railroad because you're a piece of garbage. It took me 3 hours to get from Hicksville to Penn Station yesterday. That's a trip that usually takes about 45 minutes because I had to go backwards and then to go forwards because a train went off the tracks on Saturday. It was a mess. It took me 3 hours. I kept my friends waiting at the train station to pick me up for like an hour because it was a disaster. So thumbs down to that. Thumbs down to the buses, which weren't running today here in DC because it is a holiday technically, even though I had to go to work and everyone here had class. So it's really not a holiday, but the buses weren't running right. So I had to walk to the Metro instead. That was not fun. Thumbs up to my professor, Professor Leonard Steinhorn, for inviting me out to WUSA 9 on Wisconsin Avenue to shoot some debate reaction, which was cool. Thumbs up to the legendary Kenneth Bone from the debate. He asked a question. It was great, but he also gave me my most popular tweet of all time. I photoshopped him into a picture of Washington crossing the Delaware, and it's been retweeted 150 times. and linked to by the New York Times and posted by Fox News on their website. And this is the peak of my journalistic career, and it's the greatest day ever. I'm like so excited about this. Back to sports. Okay, thumbs up. I'm gonna thumbs up to the Blue Jays. They're red hot right now, playing really well. Edwin Encarnacion wants a new contract after the end of this year, and he's playing like it. Also, thumbs up to this sign that I saw in Toronto at Game 3, which was better to be punched in May than knocked out in October, because I think that's fantastic, in reference, of course, to Rougned Odor punching Jose Bautista in the face earlier this season, and then the Blue Jays getting the last laugh and knocking the Rangers out of the playoffs. That's a great sign. I approve. Football, I don't know. I got really nothing for this week because I missed most of football because I was traveling all day on Sunday, like I said, which was not fun. I don't know. That's really what I got. Our poll for this week, we had to take down our poll from last week because I was told it was bullying. Whatever. Our poll for this week, we want you to pick how you think the second American League Division Series is going to end. Your options are Cleveland in 3, Cleveland in 4, Cleveland in 5, or Red Sox in 5. They've got a shot, and they've technically done it before. They were down 3-0 before and came back to win, so you can't count out those Bo Sox. You never know what's going to happen. That's what we got. I'll jump on the Cody Cohen train. Thumbs down to Cody for not coming. That is it. So thanks to Vince, Vikram, Jake, Ryan, Kristen, and Aviva, who is in the back currently. That is everyone who is here. I am Dan. Come back next week for more Sports Zone.